people. Hi, everybody. We're about to get started here. Let a few more people trickle in, maybe.
Yeah.
Hi, Lee.
Hi.
Is that me? I don't think so.
I think that's Lee.
Just a robocall.
But it could have been who were those people before with the magazine? Clearinghouse Publishing or one of those kind of
Oh, yes.
used to get a stack of
Uh,
all those things in the mail that you could be next. Here, just put the stamps on here. And you could be a billionaire.
How many people believed it? Well, it must have been profitable.
Well, I actually have a story about that. One of my friends, she actually got a divorce because of that, because her husband, she was Japanese and he was like more recent Japanese, came here, had a very nice job out at the airport, doing nice job. It's the airport, San Francisco. And he quit his job because he was so convinced that he could win. And he would go out and spend lots of money buying the newspapers and pasting all the stamps in. And he became like obsessed with it. And she couldn't convince him that it was a scam. And then pretty soon they had like no money or anything because all he did was, that was Clearinghouse Publishing thing. So she just said, I'm out of here. She took the baby and left.
I appreciate your story because you see, we as humans on this planet have to be aware of how we are convinced and influenced so radically in many different things, whether it be that or be beliefs or religions or whatever, even into marriages. Yeah. But politically, however, it's how do we educate our persons to understand how they're being persuaded?
Yes. Maybe we should have a conversation sometimes about let's say the comparing common sense and critical thinking. Ooh.
Okay, that's my it for today. Now I'm going to leave.
Well, welcome.
I have not been here. My husband died. You know that.
Yes, and my condolences again.
Oh, I appreciate it. I didn't say it for that reason, but I wanted you to know that it's not because I was ignoring all the things that you do.
And I have to say, before we get started here, I have to say there's a lot of stress relieved from your face. I can see like maybe you are actually getting sleep from time to time now.
Sleep's never been my problem. No, that's interesting. But I have been trying to read a couple of pages in grief, and it's not crazy. That's what I found out.
Yeah. Well,
hi, Betty.
Hi, Betty. Your mic is off. Well, we're going to get started. What we're doing today is this is a kind of a part 2, and we have some extra stuff. We didn't think we could cover this all in one time, but we're going to talk a little bit deeper about the value of discussion. I mean, that's what we're doing here. That's the central theme of this exercise is the discussion. One, hopefully bringing some topics that people uh, may not have a platform to discuss. Sometimes you have an idea, you want to wrestle with that idea, but with whom, where, what is appropriate, where can you find conversation with people who will in a friendly way challenge what you believe so that you can get a clearer idea of what it is in fact that you think, or maybe just get more information on it, a new perspective. Sometimes we can lack an opportunity to do that. So part of this effort is that, but also part of the effort is giving people an opportunity to practice having a conversation, especially about a topic that might be touchy, you know. And I think we need um, practice. You know, that's the thing that we often. Uh, I know I have a struggle with that. You know, just like trying to remind myself that whatever it is I think I know, whether it's a skill or whether it's an idea or whatever, it's not a thing until I put it into practice. You know, just trying to find opportunities to put those new ideas into practice. Or if I learn a new word, finding a place to put that word into practice, to use it in a sentence, to see how other people respond to the word, so I know whether I need to explain it more or use it in a different context so that they get it. And what happens when they know that word and get that idea? All of that stuff is in the practice. So in these discussions too, that's really what I see as the value, as one of the value points, is giving people at least the opportunity to struggle with an idea. So that's what we're going to do. But first, we have a treat for you that Ryan has prepared. Uh, he's actually gone back and gotten some clips from some previous um, discussions that we've had, and he's put those clips together. And so let's just watch the clips. So I won't prime you too much on that. And then afterwards, we'll talk about the clips and talk about, like what it is that we're trying to do here, what it is that you uh, maybe could get more out of, and how we can, what we do going forward. Okay, Ryan, you want to show us the clip?
I know the winds of change are blowing, but don't let go, just stay in this moment.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to be having a very interesting conversation today.
That's what I like to do. I like to know about people and why they are the way they are.
Everyone is entitled to their own opinion based on your thoughts, your feelings, who you are, your life, and all that.
Isolation from people, loved ones, family. You really do feel like you've been removed from people. In a situation like it's been over the past couple of years, is not knowing what it will end up being.
So I just come in here into this room and I'm here to listen, and I'm here hopefully to learn, and I keep an open mind, and it's always interesting, these conversations, because they always stick with me, about what everyone has to say about things.
The thing that I find the most difficult and have found the most difficult since I've been a child is being able to deal with people who want me to make them more comfortable. I get picked on and I'm called a nigger. and I really don't like that. Well, yes, but were your actions though, such as, and you know what I'm saying, and I say, well, no, I was walking down the hall and somebody yelled out to me, I'm the only one in the hall that's African American, and they yelled out nigger, and I say, well, no, I was just walking, minding my own business. But. So I guess one of the hardest things for me to deal with is that but, and that but is people want me to make them more comfortable with whatever aligns with them. And it's more today than any time in my life.
Hopefully, all around the planet, we're educating our young in order to achieve ultimate peace. Now, it seems like a radical idea when you first hear it, but we hope that's why we're educating our young, such that they can exist peacefully. Exactly. Come on in there, Lee. Comment.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. In teaching, I was teaching 14 and 15-year-olds, and that was a very high priority in my educating youngsters. How they discussed the groups that they were in, reason they were in their groups, how they had to be able to be accepting of others, helpful to others, discussing topics in a very civil manner, using facts, using research. We worked very hard on that. And yes, we learned the content also of the curriculum. Thank you. I truly believe it starts there.
And what has really sustained me throughout the years is actually our culture and our way of life, and how we look at death and how we look at separation and isolation. And if we can cling to those and look back to how our ancestors survived in the past and how they dealt with the loss and death, that seems to be something that comforts me and also comforts many of our people. And prayer is a big part of that. And and understanding that not only as humans we grieve, but other animals grieve as well, and other life forms. Even plants grieve the loss of their plant members. You know, you automatically think of whales and dolphins and elephants because they grieve as well. There are examples of that in the wild. And also the buffalo, who we looked at as part of our how we came to be. We are closely allied with the buffalo in our survival. And so the buffalo also, they grieve for one another, and you can see it. You can see the tears in the eyes of buffalo when they've lost, especially a mother has lost one of her children. So, you know, I think of a whole range of things, but coping mechanisms is something that I think of, and we have to deal with it somehow. And I think our culture is what has sustained us in that grieving process.
I guess my first most shocking grief experience is when my younger brother was suddenly killed. And I'd be walking around the city where I lived, and he lived nearby at that time too. And I'd suddenly see someone up ahead of me, and I was sure it was him. From the back, it looked just like him. And then I'd have to again experience the fact that he was dead.
And I go more for the emotional payoff in the poem, you know, trying to say something and trying to move readers either through humor or anger or through sorrow or through just making them sit and think about something for a while.
When you talk about how you've been influenced by history, I think it's important to realize how many of us who are alive and not of ancient age have been influenced by a history that's based on lies and propaganda, which is basically what that is. It's a propaganda that's trying to remove any guilt that you might have about the fact that there had been slavery in your state. It's designed to make you feel like it was okay that your ancestors were enslaved, because they were actually better off than they had been in Africa, according to the text, and that they were safer there. You know, there's no mention of the whips, but they're not being threatened by clubs and spears. And so there's a distortion there that omits the truth, but it also paints a picture that is disassociated from the reality.
And too often we concentrate too much on trying to build relationships. And I will say, I can't build a relationship with someone who hates me, right? In general, there might be like the one-off possibilities, but what I can do is fight against that legislation to ensure that our communities are not marginalized in an institutional level. And that's really the shift that we are trying to make.
I know the winds of change are blowing, but don't let go, just stay in this moment.
Well, I won't prime you, but what do you think? What do you think? Don't pay attention to Ryan. He's not here. So, comments. What did you think?
Good choices, Ryan, and it was really nice to review, and some of the things I missed, to see them for the first time.
Anyone else?
Hi, Ryan. Thanks for doing that. This is Jace. I always get a kick out of when I hear my voice back, because I say, do I really sound like that? Oh my gosh, did I really say that? Because I, sometimes I just talk from my heart. So, well, I always talk from my heart. So it's a lot of times I'm not even sure what I've said, and hopefully it's come out, making some sense. And but I'm glad that you were able to put together a little snippets of what we've been talking about, because there have been some pretty heavy things sometimes, and but there have also been some light moments, and that's what life is, and that's what we've been talking about in this series, and understanding life and understanding ourselves better, and understanding how to deal with other folks that are not that are struggling, because we're all struggling at some point. And so having that compassion and understanding, and trying to understand others, is, I think, is an important goal. And I think we've succeeded in that part of it. Way to go yet. There's still always work to be done on ourselves, and to deal with situations, but it starts with conversation. It starts with talk. And if you can talk to folks and get a better understanding, then I think that gives us a better way of looking at the world, and a better way of looking at ourselves as well. Others grow and we grow. I'll talk some more later, maybe.
Yes. Oh, really appreciate that, Jace. Anyone else? Crystal, you missed your starring moment. You're a star, but you snooze, you lose, But it was nice to hear your comments too. Anyone else has any comments on the video?
I'm going to give kudos to Ryan, how you can put that away, put that together. That's techniques I don't know how to do, and am amazed at the results. And results of not only putting it together, but getting the different viewpoints on so many different levels. I thought that was done quite well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It was, I will say too, it was hard to choose the clips because there was just so many amazing conversations and insightful comments. I tried to include as many people as I could, but I was telling Lawrence before the show that, you know, I finally had to just stop looking through all the videos because I would have I would have never finished it because there was so much great content that I mean that's just a tiny fraction of it. So we really appreciate everybody coming in here and really kind of pouring their heart out in some ways and talking about these difficult things. It's not easy, but I've really just enjoyed the kind of camaraderie that we have in here and how everybody's gotten to know each other too. So
Well, on the technical side, I will say that editing about 50 hours of video is no easy task, no matter what you were trying to do. And when you consider we've been going at this for, what, next week it's a year. And so it's right at, that's 52 weeks. So throw away a couple of weeks and, for in between. And that's like 50 hours of video. And when you have a lot of things that have come out and moments and things that people have shared, trying to get it down to anything that's shy of a major motion picture, is that's quite challenging, you know. Yeah, editing anyway is challenging. Trying to get the clips where people say something and then you're not editing out or changing what they believe or what they're trying to say, but at the same time, finding enough in that to make it meaningful to someone who wasn't in that moment. No easy task. So kudos for even trying, but kudos for your success too, right, on that.
thank you.
Um, so I think the video really sort of points out to kind of our task here, and I do think we share a task, and that task is each one teach one. You know, all of us have something that we bring to a discussion, or we could bring to a discussion. All of us have some perspective of a thing, even, especially when it's different from the other people, it becomes valuable. You know, I think it's important to stress test our ideas, to think about them, to think them through. But it's also important to bring something and throw it out on the table just for discussion without being wed to the idea, without feeling like we have to protect the idea. It always reminds me of like, cockfighting, where you throw the chicken in and you can't help the chicken. you know the chicken is on his own. It's like, yeah, you fed him and you ran him around and stuff, but that chicken is on its own. I kind of feel like that about ideas too, where you throw the idea out there. You've taken care of it as much as you can, think about it, research it, and you got some heart in it. You bring the chicken, your idea to the arena, but you throw it out there and then it's on its own. you know you let the other people, like, talk about that idea, let their ideas get in, their chicken get in with your chicken, and then get the ideas flowing, and then just let the ideas fight. The people aren't fighting. Let the ideas struggle, and see which one's still standing, you know, and it may be that chicken wins this fight, but then you throw another chicken in and it may not be so good, you know, and sometimes the chicken gets damaged by the other chicken. So he would have won if he had fought that chicken at first, but now he's got to fight another chicken and he's weakened, you know, and all of that I find happens in the arena of ideas, you know, where the ideas are out there struggling with each other. And if we can just see that and just root for the winning chicken, you know, just root for that idea rather than, oh, my chicken didn't win, so I feel bad. But just root for, well, which one is the best one? Which idea covers, you know, is most useful? And that's how I define the best idea. The best idea is the idea that's most useful most often. You know, some ideas are very useful in a niche and in a particular time and place. But what about that? Where's that? And that could be a good idea. But the best idea to me is the one that has the most uses most often. You know, it's that one tool that you can use so often, and it does a good job at it. You know, it does the best job most often in the most situations. So I would like to turn the discussion now to what kinds of ideas, things that you have been thinking about that maybe you want more information on and you want to have a discussion about it, but you may not even know how to start that conversation. Right? And if you don't feel like, you know, too shy to talk, you can put it in the chat too. You know, you can just type it in that little thing down at the bottom of the screen that says chat. If you click on that, then you can type on it. So anyone, ideas that you would like to see us bring to our chicken arena here? Anybody?
Well, I'd like to bring up that first thing, you know, how are people persuaded in educating people, how they are persuaded in whatever their beliefs are.
How people are persuaded.
Mm-hmm. 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 What draws people to topics. And before you even do that, I think you need to look at the cause and what you expect as results or hope to achieve as positive results.
Okay.
Whatever the discussion topic is. Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Anyone else? Thinking. You know, I can always come up with, oh, someone was saying something. Go ahead.
I hate to monopolize the conversation here.
No, that's why we're here.
Well, you know, being a teacher for so many years, and I know there's some other teachers on board here. Well, I guess we're all teachers if you look at it that way, in one way or another. But you know, we had a lot of discussions in my classes, and that was kind of the heart of the class, where you know, I would give a lecture and point out some major points that I'd like to, you know, them to kind of think about, know about, and history or whatever we were talking about. But oftentimes we would deal with, you know, especially the more contemporary classes in American Indian history, you know, talking about different issues and so forth. And some of the issues were really difficult to talk about. Like what's coming up now, the boarding school deaths and things like that. Well, we've been talking about those things for decades, those horrible kinds of situations. And, but so, I'm so used to dealing with issues or quote unquote problems for decades. But the main thing is to try to find, like you said, Lawrence, possible solutions and how to deal with those situations and how to come up with a different paradigm or a different way of looking at how we can deal with the situation in a positive way. And so again, I always come back to my Lakota beliefs and the Lakota way of thinking. And all in our belief system, everyone has a say, everyone has a voice in the process, and everyone should have a voice. And that's pretty typical. Now, back in the day, they would make unanimous decisions. Unanimity is pretty difficult today, though, with the diversity of populations and people. But back in the day, they were very, they kind of all understood where they were coming from and what was important in the culture. And so they were very good persuasive speakers. They could put their point across, and they were very in discussions. They were very, they showed leadership skills, and they were able to persuade other folks on their ideas and give good examples of why this would work versus why this doesn't work. And so they were wonderful leaders, but the leaders were backed by their character, how they presented themselves in real life, and not only in this situation, but in many other situations. So their honesty, their integrity, their compassion, their love for all the people, and generosity, and all those other values that are traditional values that are so important and making a society work in a good way. And so the main thing, though, is I think I fall back on the traditional ways of our people to help us to better understand different issues and how we can make a better world and make a better thing about whatever issue you're talking about. Next week, one of my colleagues is going to have a discussion, brainstorming session on the Lakota language. And she's bringing together a number of elders that are coming together to talk about the importance of the language and how we're going to deal with maintaining it, but also sharing it, and also coming up with ideas of how to better assist other folks who are trying to learn the language and keep it alive. And so she's got a very specific set of questions that are going to, be posed to the elders and all those who are at this session. And so that should be very interesting. And I'm going to be taking a lot of notes so that I can help her to be able to process what she hopes to do. That is her passion, saving our language and preserving our language. So that is the issue that she will be dealing with next week. And I think that's an important issue. So that's another thing, there are all kinds of important issues out there, and we as individuals have to figure out what our passion is and what our energy, how are we going to deal with different issues, because there's all kinds of things going on. You can't be everyone to everything and every place. So, but I've enjoyed this place to listen to other folks' ideas. So I'm going to be quiet now. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your contribution. I got a few ideas out of that, and I actually have a question for you. You would have access to or connections to people that would be very useful to these discussions. For example, the person that you talked about dealing with the boarding school deaths. Now, we can read stuff in the newspaper, And there are some interesting things, especially at the beginning. Okay, we get it, but there's lots more. We get that there was multiple events that that most of us didn't know about. Okay, and even if we heard about it, it because it wasn't new to me, but what was new was the amount of, it was just like, the way I had heard about it, it was like, some random rogue monk, priest, or something like that. And then people covered it up, which is horrible enough. But that number of people, that's, there has to be some other explanation for how you let that go on. And for so many different places. So I think we would benefit really from somebody who can talk more about it and what is being done, what can be done. For example, I've already made some proposals that every one of those schools have some kind of monument with every one of those children's name on it and what happened there. In every one of those schools, that whether there's a new building there or not, there should be some monument that we never forget what happened, but that's a small thing.
That's a whole lot of monuments, Lawrence.
We got a lot of monuments to a lot less things that are a lot less important than that. So I don't have a problem with, a whole bunch of monuments, however many it takes. And there's lots more children, so I think every one of those children deserve a monument, for what happened to them. Their families deserve a monument. So at the very least, we can make something at one of those schools. I mean, that's, maybe I'm too emotional, but that's the way I feel about it.
There's a couple of folks out of Rapid City that are working on the monument dedicated to the Rapid City Indian School children, those who died there. And they've been working on this for several years now, before all of this other, the horrendous news that came out. They've been working on locally on Rapid City. And many of us here, like I had grandparent that went to school there, and my husband's parents went to school there. And so, there are a lot of stories locally here, and there are a couple ladies, so I might be able to give Ryan and you some suggestions to have those folks participate if they're willing to. Pretty emotional issue, but
it is. It is. But I think we need to wrestle with that. We need to not forget it, and it needs to be part of our understanding of who we are and how we got here. I think that's all important. So in that, maybe if you could funnel that to Ryan, I think he's the best person to, and then he and I work on those things together anyway, but it's easier, I think, to work through Ryan on that. But in another one is language preservation. Okay, so I've actually taught a course in Lakota poetry, or at least what I hoped could become that. So I'm aware of the efforts to preserve native languages, but I think it would be worth having a discussion with someone who's in the thick of it to talk about not only what is trying to be accomplished, but why that's important to all of us, not just the speakers of the language, and there are lots of reasons why that's important to all of us, not just the people who it is their traditional cultural language. Because whether we like it or not, it's becoming our culture, and it should have been more our culture anyway, because we're here, we have, we're all on this land, and we're sharing it together, so we have to become one another. It's not like Like, I think that it goes back to the boarding schools where, at least ostensibly, in air quotes, the idea was to acculturate people on who were on reservations into the rest of society to bring them in. But I think what we missed is we didn't know enough about the people whose land we invaded. Well, and I say we in the, just a historical sense. But it's, I think that we have something to learn from, from native cultures. And language, of course, is a lot of that stuff is going to come through language. So having someone to bring, a perspective of the value of native languages, I think that would be useful too, if you could find somebody who is willing and able to engage with us and have a conversation like that.
I'll try.
Okay, I appreciate
Okay,
that.
will do.
Okay. Anyone else have ideas of things that we might explore going forward?
Good morning.
Good morning, Crystal. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I got this thing about conversation on my mind that it's kind of bugging me. So, the boarding school, we just used, I think Jason made mention of it, but this boarding school issue. So my mom is 95, she'll be 96 this year. Well, she went to boarding school but she didn't have a negative experience. Like, she had a good experience. She's thankful for her boarding school years. So tomorrow, Keloland News is coming to Sisseton, and they want to talk to people about boarding school experiences. So my mom, through the elderly program, when they brought her meal yesterday, they put in a letter that says, Keloland's going to be here. We want some elders to speak on the boarding school experience. We apologize ahead of time for, invoking your traumas, but we'd sure like to hear, they'd like to hear your story. Well, that got her all riled up, because she said, well, what do you mean traumas? I didn't really have any traumas. I have good stories. The priest and how they, I don't know, took care of the kids, and when parents couldn't take care of them, and she just has a whole different perspective than a lot of the people nowadays. So I'm kind of worried about letting her put her out there. I'm just like, I don't know, Mom, if you should, because people are going to be angry. They might, be mad at you for telling that part of a story, but I believe every story has two parts. And some people did get, not everyone was murdered. Not everybody was abused. Some people came out of the boarding school with an experience, whether it was good or bad. And what brought them there in the first place? Parents, maybe there was no food, they couldn't take care of them, not enough money. So there's always like two sides to a story. So I'm thinking about that conversation for her tomorrow, because she's just bent on going over there and, telling her side of it. And it's not going to be all bad. It's going to be good that she got out of it. And she, I'm just kind of worried about that. And just thinking about that, having that, letting her have that conversation. Or then I'm thinking, well, it's not really my job to say, Mom, I don't think you can, because she's been saying this for since I can remember, I want to tell my story. I want to tell them how it was when I was there, and that would have been like 1935. And then, so there's another thing that kind of brought me to this topic when I was thinking about it. Remember, Lawrence, a couple of years back, you did that Martin Luther King Day in Sisseton. You came and did a presentation. Well, I remember sitting with a couple of the ladies who were non-Indian, and they went to boarding school. One of the ladies had a bad boarding school experience, but the only difference was that I think for them it was optional, so she got to go home. She had a home to go home to. Some of our people didn't really have that home, to go home to during maybe the Great Depression, or I don't know. But when she told me that she was at a boarding school and she had some bad experiences with the nuns, and she was a non-Indian, I was like really shocked, because that was in South Dakota.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'd like to hear more even about that, the boarding schools that I think the non-Indians had boarding schools too.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's just it's such a sensitive topic. And, I feel so sad. And, all of there's 9 of us in my family. 6 of my brothers and sisters grew up in boarding school. So just me, my brother, and my little sister, my little brother, and me, we did not go to boarding school. But, I always felt sad that some days I want to talk about it to my mom and say, why did you have to put everybody at the boarding school? Why couldn't you and dad take care of the kids, But it feels like too painful, because I know maybe they didn't have money, maybe there's too many kids. I don't know. It is just a sad thing. But so tomorrow, anyways, you might see her on Kelloland News in the next week or something. But I think that's an idea to explore, just like positive and negatives, just, having that whole story. All of our stories matter, of course. And it just to have that, maybe a conversation about that. And, I'd like to talk about relations, like white or non-Indian, Indian, different. I'd like to talk about that in just a good way, just to kind of understand that we are all, if we just look back and realize that we're all the same, right? We have a lot more differences than we have indifferences, I think, when it comes to love of family, our values, things that we hold dear to us. I think in South Dakota, we need to have that conversation about the race issue, and that just kind of bringing people more together. And how do we keep that open mind? Because there's racism on both sides. I know a lot of natives that are racist too, against, they hold these long historical traumas past, from their past, from generational down the line. Grudges are still being held. Maybe even talk about grudges. How do you get over a grudge? How do you bring like forgiveness into the lives of us as strangers, as we pass in the street, or just, there's a lot of hate in our there's a lot of hate that can be seen. And sometimes we don't even know why people have these hateful feelings, And so I think that's a good thing to discuss, kind of get in there and just get to the bottom of it, or just really, since I think of this place as a safe place where we can open our feelings, we're not really going to get bashed for saying anything, but learning how to have that conversation with one another. I think that's important. So that's just some of my my thoughts. And maybe we had these conversations, you might have had them and I missed them. I didn't go back and look from the beginning, but just some things.
Thank you very much. Those are all really good ideas. I was reflecting on when you were talking about the good boarding school experiences, and how it brings into focus how our humanity actually can sabotage us. I mean, when I say humanity, I take into consideration our foibles, the things that we're weak in, and how they can put us on a slippery slope to do things that we otherwise wouldn't do. And then, like, it's one of those kind of things where you tell a lie and you have to cover up a lie, and then pretty soon you're wrapped in lies. And it's hard to unwrap yourself out of that. But the initial lie might have been an honorable thing to do, because it saved somebody's feelings who wasn't ready to deal with that reality at that moment. It's kind of like if you go to a place, let's say, for example, you go to a funeral, it's not the best time to let the wife know that actually your husband had 2 or 3 girlfriends on the side. You know what I mean? Especially if she never knew that. It's still truth, but is it the, and if that person is there, like, do you deny it at least for the funeral? So let the woman have some kind of illusion and deal with that for the moment, but then later on, maybe you could say, so it's all of those kind of things, So
Yeah.
the thing that came to mind that you were talking about is how many of the places that the people who are doing the boarding schools, they were monks or of some kind, often men. And what is unknown is that many of those men, they were there for the same reasons. Their family had too many kids and they gave them to the monastery.
Mm.
And so they grew up and that's all they knew. And so the whole idea of like, okay, this is a man of God, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the monasteries had rules, but really those guys were kind of wild,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it was almost like they were put in prison and they didn't know any other life. Even if they had gained some skills, they didn't really, let's say culturally it was hard for them to leave, but they really didn't have that internal discipline as monks, even though there was this order. And the other thing that I reflect on is, how they had that training where they forbid the kids to use their native language when they were, and I reflect on, that's how I learned French. It's called the immersion method, and that's how the CIA, the FBI, the military intelligence, that's the State Department, that's how they all learn languages, is immersion, right? Now, there are some differences and important differences, but I think that kind of round discussion, those kind of discussions about those things can put things into perspective without excusing the fact that you shouldn't have killed all those kids.
Mm-hmm.
And you shouldn't have covered it up, and you shouldn't have made them miserable. They're already miserable enough. I don't think that excuses any of that.
No,
But
definitely.
but I think that the perspective, and so that's the kind of thing a discussion can bring out. And that's the thing that your mother, you said was your mother, right?
Yeah.
There's the kind of thing, her experience, in contrast to other people's experience, it's her experience that can bring up that part of the conversation so that we can cover all these different sides and let the chickens fight,
I know, right? Let the chickens fight. Yeah, she's well, she was there like she's born in 1925, 25. So like 1934, I think she first went to, she said they came and got me. My dad tried to hide me out. And, she could be so traumatized that maybe she doesn't even know she's traumatized, there's that possibility too.
Yeah, there's all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think part of that conversation is just, I think the best part of it is just that we can say, in conversations, we can say what we think, even if it's totally off the wall of what you believe or I believe, but we have a opportunity to say it, and without fear of, being attacked or, but I guess that's the whole art of conversation, is that, my brother-in-law was here from California, and that guy can have a conversation about any single thing. You don't even have to say one word and he'll talk and talk and talk and talk. And it's like, wow, this, he can just go on for days. But, when you think about that art of conversation, but there's all different kinds of levels, and I think that's what's good about this project, is that it shows us all those levels. How deep do you want to go in having those conversations? Or do we just want to have surface, like, oh, well, how's the weather? Or how was your weekend? How's the family? Anybody could do that. But I think here we're just trying to find, I don't know, solutions, maybe even, I don't know what's going to happen in the next year. Maybe we need to have, like, take it one step further. And, I always like the idea of the Toastmasters. I never did a Toastmasters, but I love the idea of Toastmasters. I love the idea of it, although I never participated, but I like that. So those are just some thoughts.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And yes, you're right. We should be taking it to the next level. And that's what we're exploring now. Is like, what would that next level look like? Where do we go from here? And you brought up some very interesting topics that, especially grudges and forgiveness. We talked a little bit about that, but it's something that's such a part of us that, as you talked about, some of these things could be covered again, because it's not so simple that you can necessarily work it all out. And often people don't really have what they know as their ideas settled yet. They haven't thought about it very much. And so those things are worth bringing up again when a person has had a little bit more time to think about it. So one last question, because we're coming up on our time, is, the value of these things really is about the conversation and what each of all of you bring in terms of perspectives, experiences, challenges, questions, and those kind of things. What could we do to, one, encourage more people to contribute, and then two, encourage more people to join this discussion? Because we have had over time a number of people, but I think there's certainly room for more ideas, and those ideas are going to come from other people. So any ideas of how you think that we could interest more people in becoming more conversational?
How we do it over here, if we have to give stipends and food and door prizes.
And food and door prizes. Yeah. Mercenary. Do they show up and talk? Because I've been to a few conferences, and I think the last one I went to over at agency or in that area, maybe it was in Sisseton, but it was a thing that I would think was put on by agency. They had a whole bunch of people in a big circle, but it wasn't a lot of people talking, like you say, that maybe they came for the food and their mouth was involved in the food. Yeah. So there was no room for talking, but
I guess if we find topics that are passionate, that connect that mind and the heart. I know I did victim impact statements for a long time with drunk driving. And so if you make people feel, if you tug at their heartstrings, I think that if there's something that they're passionate about, then they're really they're gonna explode and just in conversation, I think. And if it's a safe place, but it has to be something that excites them,
Yeah.
I found that out.
Yeah. I will agree with you 100%. And it's one of the things that caused me great sadness. And the reason it caused me great sadness is because usually what happens is they have that passion about the thing, but it comes out in uncoordinated emotional vomit, Yeah. And they're really excited, or they're mad, or something like that. And you can see that they're pushing it through their vocal cords. You can hear that in their voice, just to get it out. But then when it comes out, it's more or less unintelligible. The message you get is, I hurt and I'm mad.
Yeah. And that to me, that's a beginning. You know what I mean?
It is. Yeah.
Like they say, if you just want to get it out, then, and I've heard women say that too. Oh, I finally got it out. I feel a lot better. And when I'm in conversation with people and like large groups, I'll say, there's something in the pit of your stomach. I don't want anybody to walk away from here without, with this pit saying when you get home, oh, I should have said this. I should have said that. That was my opportunity, but I was so scared to what other people would think about me. So we have to stress that all the time. It's like, we're in a safe place, go ahead and just say what you have to say. It's a healthy risk. Take that healthy risk and just, I guess it takes a lot. What's the saddest thing I ever saw is in a group of room with kids under 17. You go around and they're asking for names, or let's say a verb that rhymes with your name, or whatever. Crystal and cat, or animal, or whatever. And you get to certain ones and they pause for uncomfortable moments of time. you know, and that is one thing that really moves me to want to try and have people help young people, especially, and even older people have those conversations, that safe
Yep.
place.
Yep. That is so important, and such an important statement that you just made there, Crystal. Where, you know, a lot of times we think, oh, these are difficult emotional subjects and people, or they're subjects that people don't know about. But I find that it's a thing, but the real thing is like a lot of people, they you almost feel like they feel like I can't talk, you know. And when they are talking, it's like these like disconnected kind of sentences that the editor in the listener's mind has to kind of put together to make it, you know, to make sense of what they're saying. And then when you do, you wonder if that really what was on their mind, because you kind of had as much to do with how you put those things together as they did. You know what I mean? Because so I have that, I experience that a lot because I'm very interested in getting people, you know, to contribute to conversations. But I think it's more fundamental, and maybe that's a whole subject too, that we can tackle as to how do we get more people to be more conversant about what they feel and what they think. Now, of course, you first have to be in touch with that, you know, you have to know. But getting to know it, I think, is part of it is testing something out by talking about it and not feel like you have to have the final thing when you say the first sentence, you have to have it all worked out. You know, have a place where you do, like maybe it comes out in bits and pieces, but somebody helps you to put it together so you can say, this I believe, you know, for the time being. And if you show me some new information, I will change my mind, you know, and that's okay. Well, it looks like we actually are over our time, but I want to thank all of you for participating today. I've gotten a few ideas. Ryan, did you have any last things that you want to say about any of this?
I don't think so. Just other than, again, we've really appreciated having you all in this program the past year, and you can always reach out to me if you have any ideas for discussions or speakers or anything like that. We we can definitely make those happen. So,
Mom, well, until next week, we want to thank you all for participating today, and see you next week, I guess.
See you,
bye, everybody.
folks. Thanks, folks.
Thanks.